Okay, we're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi guys, and welcome to Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards, and synthesizers. And continuing with my Depeche Mode album review series, you know, I went on a little tangent and started a Shake the Disease series. And I'm delighted today to have the one and only Mr. Peter Kerr, who has agreed to doing a Skype interview with us today, all the way from sunny California, Los Angeles. How are you, Peter?
I'm good. Nice to be here.
I haven't gotten you out of bed, have you?
No, not quite. No, I've had my breakfast. Everything's all right.
What's the weather like there?
Today it's kind of hot and sunny, but we've had lots of rain and mist.
So, Peter, that's the first question I'm going to ask you. You've ended up in Los Angeles? Is that because of work related career?
Well, I came out here for work, and then I met my wife Lorraine, and we fell in love and had kids and everything. So I kind of stayed because of that. But work was going well as well.
That's good. And first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to this interview. And as I say, when you agreed to the interview, I did a bit of obvious research on you, and I was amazed to see it's everyone from REM, Bruce Springsteen, Tina Turner, Roy Orbison.
Yeah.
I mean, the list is endless. And when I announced on my Facebook page that I was going to be interviewing you, people jumped onto me and they said, "Can you ask him about Cabaret Voltaire? Can you ask him about this? Can you?" And I said, "Okay, guys, let me just establish a relationship initially and just see, if you're happy." So, Peter, today really I want to focus on Depeche Mode, basically Shake the Disease and the It's Called the Heart music videos. And then later on, I want to, when I do my series on Stripped, I'd hope you'll agree to come back on and we can talk about that. So let's just start with you, Peter. When did you move to America?
In '86.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was with a company called Limelight back then doing music videos in London. And I heard that they had a office out here in LA, and I've always wanted to be in America. So it was one of my ambitions to work in America. And I'd been working a fair amount with Bananarama.
All right, okay.
And they were going to be in America. They wanted me to come out to do video, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
And I got out here, and then they canceled the shoot. And I said to the company, "I'm not going back right now. You got to find something for me to do." So that worked out well.
Well, you say they had to find something for you to do, but you happened to meet the young lady there at the time, so that could have kept you busy enough.
It was, I'll just tell you, I don't want to go into too much detail, but the first job I got here in America was for an artist called Robbie Neville. It was called C'est La Vie. And he had booked his hairdresser, his hairstylist, before he was looking at directors. And his hairstylist was Lorraine. So he said, "You have to meet my hairstylist. If she likes you, then you get the job."
Wow.
So anyway, we did the job and we fell in love on the shoot. It was very,
That's an amazing story. It's kind of like a movie script in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. And the sad part was it was a massive hit on MTV and the radio, and the record company didn't know it was going to be such a huge hit, and they hadn't shipped enough copies of the record, so it didn't sell.
Oh.
A strange story. But,
well, Peter, I'm sure that you've got loads of stories like that, and that's one of the many examples where record companies can get things wrong, even with all their market research and everything.
Yeah.
But now, Chester, I see I've got my lemon water here. It's unusually hot this time of the year for Blighty here. So, okay, let's jump into it. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. And of course, I have got several questions from my subscribers and my Facebook group.
Okay.
So let's start off with, okay, well, one of the questions, the obvious question is, how did you get involved with Depeche Mode? Did Daniel Miller call you up, or how did it happen?
Yeah, well, somebody called me up because I ended up meeting Daniel. I think I just moved, I was just a few days into my move to London from Sheffield. And Daniel must have known my work with Cabaret Voltaire, and he and they were friends. And I wasn't going to ignore a call from Mute Records at that point either. So the way I remember it is I went round to his office at Mute, and I've known Daniel anyway because I had his records. I had the Normal and the Silicon Teens records. And the first thing I saw in his office was there was a piece of artwork. It was like a kind of double exposed photograph, if I remember rightly. And it was called Warm Leatherette, and it was based on the book Crash by Ballard. So I immediately thought, well, I'm kind of home with it here, you know. And so he said, well, look, this could work out well. Do you want to meet the band? So then we went around to the recording studio, and they played me Shake the Disease.
Okay.
And then, which is always awkward when you're a director, you know, you don't, do I tap my foot? Do I nod my head? Do I just look at the floor? You know, so anyway, we did that. And it was really good. The band were very keen, I think, to work with me through the Cabaret Voltaire connection. And I think it was very clear to me that they were in this transition from that kind of poppy, you know, Vince thing. I know it was quite a while since Vince had left and they had Alan, but basically I could see in terms of their, you know, the clothes they were wearing, kind of, you know, Berlin industrial music leather, and the haircuts and everything were completely different from what I expected. And that was kind of neat, you know, I think, to see a band in transition like that. It's kind of good as a director to come in and try and help with that in some way. And what was I going to say? And then they had a few kind of pointers that they wanted in the video. Like Daniel himself was there. I guess he was still producing their music. And there were some industrial sounds on there, a kind of piece of metal on metal kind of sound. He said, look, you got to think of a visual idea for that. And we don't want actors in the music video. You got to make the band look good, which I thought was a really good kind of brief, actually, to be honest with you. It's my instinct as well. And then setting up Shake the Disease, I was still kind of figuring out the scene in London, how you put a music video together in London. It's very different than Sheffield, where there's 6 or 7 of us filmmakers. We all worked for each other pretty much for free, and we were all skilled in pretty much everything. So to go to London, where you're part of this kind of factory sausage making machine, it took a while for me to understand how it all worked. So when I put the idea together for the band to look at, the kind of backstory, if you like, for the video was this idea that rather than making a video about a love song and a guy who's obviously in heartache, which the lyrics are about, I kind of interpreted that as someone who was, you know, he had a diseased mind. He was in a room, and I wanted it to be kind of somewhat reminiscent of an American kind of film noir, but in color. A guy's in a hotel room, and the walls are literally closing in on him, and he's disorientated. And I think, you know, I could have, if it was a short film for myself, I would have had an actor, and that would have been it. But I also wanted to make sure that the band had stuff to do. You know, so I think it's really hard when for any actor, no matter how experienced, it's always better to give an actor something to do as well as kind of, you know, perform the emotion of the scene and so on. And with a band, it's doubly that, I think, that you need to give musicians something to do, and even if it's just walking along the street in slow motion.
Yes.
So apart from the idea of this character that was kind of obviously going to be Dave singing this song in this hotel room, I brought in a colleague of mine, a guy called Tony Hill, who made some rigs for himself that I used in the Sensoria video for Cabaret Voltaire. And I asked Tony, look, have you got anything else that would be great for a feeling of disorientation? It'd be kind of fun for musicians to use. And so he brought a couple of his machines down to the shoot. So as well as the interior set design thing, we were outside in a Dockland warehouse or somewhere like that, but just for a few hours working with Tony. And that's how we got those shots. I still love those shots. Got nothing to do with me, really.
Yeah.
So you know, each member of the band was strapped to this pole,
yes,
which was a dampened motor, and the pole could rotate. And at the other end of the motor was another piece of metal with a camera strapped to it. So as the pole turned, the camera would turn, and it created that illusion of the Earth spinning. Mm. And then I said to Tony, it's kind of nice just seeing someone go down like they're in a kind of weird dream. So we did that. And the one disappointment actually doing that video was a technical one. And it kind of taught me a big lesson as well about how you put a music video together as part of an industrial marketing artifact as opposed to just a piece of self-expression. And that was, I didn't know anyone in the crew. They were kind of hired for me. And the idea of the walls coming in, sort of literally while the camera was running, was I thought a kind of important visual element. So I said to the production designer a few days before the shoot, well, I want the walls to move. And she said, well, fine. And I remember going down the day before the shoot to look at the set, which would look beautiful. And I said, oh, could I see the walls move now? And she said, well, of course they'll move. And she got a couple of guys and picked up a wall and moved it. And I said, no, I wanted it. I thought there'd be a rig or something or rails on the ground or something, and the walls would move literally in front of your eyes. And she said, oh, Peter, I didn't understand. I'm sorry. But, you know, that would have kind of exploded the budget. You'd need about 10 times as much money for that kind of rigging and safety issues and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I can't go back to the band now and ask for an extra, you know, whatever, 90% increase in funding. So when we started the shoot, I kind of just saw how it would work with one of the rigs, which has had the camera strapped to, you know, each member of the band. And I got to say, I was actually looking at it the other day, obviously, and I thought Fletch looked really great in that video.
He looks really. He doesn't even.
I mean, you know, I can't remember who the DP was. The DP meaning director photographer. Yeah. I'm sorry, I've been trying to find out who shot it because it's beautiful. And I remember the guy that shot. It's called The Heart, and maybe it was the same one as that one. I don't know. It was just beautifully lit, and the band you know, they were great. I thought, and. Then when Dave was singing the song, we kind of used, instead of having the walls moved, I had the production bring in a crane. So the camera could move around and make it a little bit more musical and interesting. And I fell in love with that. It's called a tulip crane. It's like it's manually operated, which they hardly ever use these days. But there was a guy who brought his own crane. And it's heavy, it weighs tons, but you put it on rails and you put weights on the back of it and you have the camera and maybe the director or the focus puller on the front of it and it goes up and down like this and it creates these arcs. And this guy was fantastic at it. And I said to him afterwards, John, he was called John Etherington, John, how come you kind of instinctively know where the camera goes? And we played the music to him and he would move to the music. He said, oh, well, in a past life, I was a roadie for the Rolling Stones. I kind of listened to their music 1,000 times a week. So I understand what's going on in the music. And I tried to work with him all the time after that. That was really good. Anyway, so when I look back at that video, it kind of looks a little simplistic, I think. I'd love to hear what people actually think of it as well. I see it as being rather simplistic. And I was going through a transition as a director, going from somewhere where I was in complete control with people I knew and trusted in Sheffield to being part of this like sausage machine factory thing in London, learning, you know, how the best way to use a budget and the best way to answer the band's marketing needs or whatever. So I thought that was kind of interesting, the way that the band were also in transition in that way. Just to jump ahead a little bit, but with it's called a Heart, you can see a huge change in the band's at ease with themselves and the ability to be in front of the camera and just get on with it, you know.
Well, Peter, it's really fascinating, as I say, with interviews. I don't like to be one of these interviewers who just talks over the person who has been interviewed. And what you've done perfectly now is you've answered so many of the questions that people have asked you, have asked me to ask you. And I remember seeing that Shake the Disease video many years ago for the first time, 35 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really, and one of the questions that was asked me now was people were saying, please ask Peter, you know, people are kind of fascinated by that movement, you know, like just before they hit the ground and it cuts away. And I think also, you know, bearing in mind with the technology which was available in those days, you know, these days we've got all types of video editing and things like that. And a lot of the things in those days had to be practical props. Now, just coming on to, as I say, you've answered so many of the questions already in the most eloquent way. Let's start off with the filming of this. Now, that room that they were in, was that a set or was it a hotel room or was it a house?
No, it was a set.
It was a set, okay. And
sorry. And then normally, well, just to go into, I don't know, maybe you could edit this out, Vaughn, but you need a set usually because being in a hotel room is extremely expensive. Because because you're taking over almost half a floor with your crew and everything. And the other thing is that I wanted the camera to be moving, and so you often need a room that's bigger than it looks on film. And one of the ways to do that is to have a set built, and you can move walls out. You know, when you put in a camera on a crane that's 14 foot high, you can't really put that into a hotel room. You have to build a set.
Sure. And where was that set?
Oh God, one of the studios somewhere in London. I'm sorry,
this is fine. It's 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Because what I'm trying to illustrate here is that these were all different locations. Wikipedia and other sources say it was filmed in Hounslow. Then I did a little video. I went around the docks to Canary Wharf recently because I was trying to find it. And I said I would probably get the exact location from you because that's going to be part. I'm going to do that in another part. But I understand it was shot in Hounslow. And then, anyway, the locations. Go on with the locations. What were the locations?
It was just a dock site. I think we went down to East India Docks for like half a day or something. Yeah. Tony and his machine. Okay.
And East India Dock. Some people told me it was Victoria Dock. But the funny thing is, Peter, although some of these details to some people will sound so trivial, to the people in my group, there is no detail that is too trivial. Everything is so important.
It's wonderful, and now, you know, this time in my life, I wish I'd kept more records of things, but you know. I just wasn't in the habit of making notes of everything that was going on. And it was kind of, I'm really very happy that I got into the world of making videos. And I got to meet some wonderful people and musicians and so on. But it was hard work. And it was kind of, you know, a 60-hour week was an easy one for me. Sometimes it was way more than that. And I used to make it more stressful for myself because I never had ideas that were left on the shelf that I could just bring to a band. I always tried to come up with a fresh idea that was influenced by how I listened to the music, my reaction to the music. And that would mean, you know, quite a few sleepless nights as well. I wasn't then going to be able to go into a kind of organizational brain and go, oh, well, yeah, I should write down the name of the location of where we were 2 days ago. So I think it's wonderful that people are interested in that, and I think it's very I think it's wonderful, and it's also coming from people who are into a band and music as well. So there you go.
Well, Peter, you also, one of the questions that I was going to ask you, which you did answer, but if you could elaborate on, you said you walked into the studio and they played you this song. Now, one of the questions was, when you heard the song, was it in its demo form, or did you hear the finished article?
I'm pretty sure it was the finished article. It was very, very smooth and strong.
Okay, and the next question to that is, did you like it, or was it like, as you say, as a professional, you don't really want to give an opinion, you just kind of keep it to yourself?
Yeah. No, of course I liked it.
You liked it, yeah.
I don't think in those, I mean, I learned, again, you could kind of do an okay job if you weren't into the music, but there was some other element that you liked. You know, you had a relationship with the artist or the record company or something like that. But for me, I could never do a music video if I didn't like the music. And I thought it impressed me, and it had there were things that worried me a little bit at first. Like I was thinking, oh man, wait a minute, they're listening to Test Department and Cabaret Voltaire, and you know, is this the right thing that a band should be doing right now? And of course it was. They were only kind of doing something that was influenced by some other people.
Yeah.
And once that was, I got rid of that kind of, you know, weird, I think now looking back, a kind of weird concern. It felt, again, like, oh, this has got really good energy to it. I like the title a lot. I also I was really loving electronic music at the time. And then the mixture of electronic sounds with kind of found sounds, like metal on metal and so on, was really interesting. So there was loads of things to like about it.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of people on my fan base, a lot of people on my subscriber base, when I talked about interviewing you, did say that Stripped, It's Called a Heart, and Shake the Disease are some of their favorite videos. And they are really some of the best videos I think Depeche Mode have done, sort of on with many of Anton Corbijn's stuff. And that is not me saying that to flatter you. That is an absolute fact. So, and I think it was that point where they were at a transition period. They had come to a point where they were still trying to shake that teeny boy look. And I think this record, which is kind of like a transition record, a very sort of standout record, because for their discography, it was kind of in the middle of albums. And I think this album and this video was very scary. You did really manage to capture the essence of that, you know, that Shake the Disease and that claustrophobic. It was a very scary video. But the question now is, Peter, was this all your idea? Were you given complete free rein to come up with whatever video concept you wanted?
Well, I believe so, but actually, one of the main reasons it was successful is that I had a very clear brief from the band and from Daniel.
Yeah.
And so that always helps. I've found over the years very difficult to come up with like a fantastic idea staring at a blank page. For me, I like the sense of collaboration, and I like being presented with a problem, if you like, some logistical problem. And so that was 50% of the work, I think, just getting a really strong brief that made sense. Yes. And the fact that the band were also very accepting. They just wanted to get a really cool looking video that wasn't like the kind of normal. Yes. And you know, all of those elements come together. So yeah, they were kind of all my ideas, but you know, you got to realize one of the ideas is, oh, I'll get my mate Tony Hill to bring down one of his fantastic machines. You know, that was a pretty easy idea to come up with, you know. And the idea of the guy in the motel room, you know, it's kind of a cliche, really, if you think about it. It's just nobody in those days would ever think of putting an idea like that into a music video. You know, it's got to be happy and palm trees and swimming pools, or ride a camel in front of the pyramids. Come on, what's this? There's some guy suffering in a tiny little room somewhere. So so I think it was not so much ideas as just an attitude to what a music video should be. I think that's what I brought to the band.
Peter, also, if I look at the 3 videos that you did, Stripped, It's Called a Heart, and Shake the Disease, these to me were the very first Depeche Mode videos where the video actually suited the music. Because if we look at previous videos like Everything Counts, and although I've got a soft spot for them, as many fans do, Shake the Disease really, like, you've got those sounds. And if you look at the video, one of the questions one of my subscribers would like to ask you is, a lot of these sounds in the song are sort of punctuated by the music video. Like there'd be like a, like scraping a fence or taking a hammer and hitting something. Was that you who sort of emphasized go and hit that? Or okay, no, that is very I guess what I'm saying is this was the first video really where the video sounded like the music. It wasn't.
Well, thank you, because I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of, is that I always felt, if you're putting film to music, the important thing to me is how the images cut to the music.
Yes.
Almost as important as what the images are themselves.
Sure.
In fact, after a few goes at doing music videos in London, I kind of figured out a way to help myself. I wouldn't do a storyboard or just a little shot list or whatever, or make it up on the spot, which most people were doing. I would write out the lyrics on a piece of paper and divide the song up into, verse, bridge, chorus, and so on. And then I would work out my cutting points before I shot. So I knew roughly how long a camera move should be, or how long do I need this singer to stand there in a puddle of water with a strobe light in his eyes, whatever it was. It could be kind of controlled ahead of the time. So the editing was always planned, and also the fact that you could cut one frame of film to go with a 25th of a second sound in the music track was really interesting to me. And that's something I learned a lot working with Cabaret Voltaire as well, because that's what they responded to in what I wanted to do. It was, I wanted the visuals to be percussive or have movement the way that music works. And it always surprised me, actually, how that convention of having shots that could be really interesting, but with very sloppy kind of attitude to the editing. It's like having, a wash of images, a moving wallpaper thing here, and the music's happening over here. I could never kind of understand why people would put up watching with it, really. I mean, I understand now more. I've got much more of an open mind, but back then, being a young, arrogant kid from Sheffield, I just thought, it's so bad. Like, why do people put up with this,
Yeah, I think there is always that element of, if you excuse the term, arty fartiness, where sometimes you will watch something and you'll be like, this has got nothing to do with the song.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but definitely in the case with Shake the Disease, that, as I said, it was one of the first Depeche Mode videos where I thought, okay, now this actually sounds like, this looks the way it sounds. If you look at It's the Heart, which is not a very popular song as far as Depeche Mode themselves are concerned, but it was a fabulous video. You did a really good job with that. Okay, here's a question. My group members are very disappointed by the fact that Alan Wilder left Depeche Mode, and it's such an interesting topic of conversation in my group. It sometimes causes division in the group, because some people get really, there are those going, oh, let it go. Then there are those are going, oh, whenever a new Depeche Mode album comes out, people will be like, oh, it would have been so much better if Alan was involved.
Right.
Anyway, one of the questions here from the Alan fanboys is, how was, from what you could tell, was Alan very sort of driving this? Was he kind of like a leader? Did he have very strong ideas, stronger than the others, or was it equal, or whatever?
I wish I could answer that clearly. Here's the thing. I think probably mostly because of who I am, who I was, but there was very little discussion and dialogue between myself and the band, and very little kind of interaction. And strangely, Alan was the one who would actually kind of break the barrier, whatever it was, whether it was coming from them or me. You'd have to ask them, but he was the one that kind of broke that barrier, and he would just come up and stand next to me or say something to me like, hey, how you doing? And so he had a more of a, how could I say? I think he was just more into the idea of myself as a director than other. And he didn't come across as the leader. Of course, I spent more time with Dave than anyone else because he was the singer. I was on the set with Dave more than anyone else, obviously. Sure. But no, when I met them first at the recording studio, it felt very much like Daniel was the leader. Yeah. He was like just calling the shots, as it were. At that point, by the time It's Called the Heart came, Daniel was way in the background as far as I was concerned. But they were, they were kind of, you could call it shy, or they just wanted to be in their own space, working with it. I remember fantastic image, though, was Shake the Disease. We shot that. I'm sure somebody knows where that was. I don't remember. It was way west of London City, obviously. And it was kind of an exciting experience, be out there in this cornfield with a lake at night and so on, and a crew and a really good DP and so on. But of course, we set up in the day, getting everything ready. And the band were due to arrive just before sunset. And they arrived in two separate limousines. And the image of the two black limousines coming up, rolling up, and then parking like half in a ditch in the side of the road, and the four guys getting out. It was a great moment. It kind of made me laugh anyway. It was kind of really nice. I was just happy for them. I was thinking, shit, you must have made some money. Great. And you needed your comfort. So good on you, because they were going to be all night trudging through cornfield.
Yeah, well, the good old 80s. The music industry is not like that at all anymore, thanks to digital and but another story altogether. But now coming on to that, the location for It's Called a Heart. Someone asked me, was it filmed in High Wycombe?
See, I don't know. If you plunk me in the middle of London, I wouldn't know where I would. You could just tell me anything about anything. I knew Queen's Park, where I lived, Leicester Square, Charing Cross Road, the Tate, and Camden Town. That was and a little bit of Notting Hill. That was it. That's all I knew about London for 2 years. And things like that, being driven out in a van, on a Thursday morning to look at a location, I would never really take things in other than it's this exciting job to be doing.
Peter, your experience is very similar to that of photographer Brian Griffin.
Right.
Obviously, he's been. Him and I actually live in the same building, so it's quite.
Right.
It's a long story. Obviously, so every time I've been doing this Depeche Mode album review series, I could get him in to discuss the artwork for every album. Right. That's been. But what is very interesting is what Brian is telling us about the band is exactly what you're saying, is that he didn't really have much to do with them. He would mainly to Daniel, and the band were kind of just there. So that is very much the same kind of story. Okay, let's go on to the next question.
Hang on for a second, Vaughn. Hang on, before the next question. There is a nice tie-in with Brian. Please. I actually met him in a gallery opening for one of his books.
Okay.
Many, many years ago. It was near Sloane Square. That's all I remember. And we just said hi and shook hands because we had a mutual friend. The person that designed the book for him was a guy called Al McDowell. Al McDowell became very famous kind of production designer, but he was working with Tim Pope in those days a lot. He did all the Cure and Susie music videos. And then I got him to do It's Called a Heart. So,
Oh wow!
so and I think Brian's work is incredible. So it's been nice revisiting his stuff as well.
Well, as you say, you may have brought up this comment now thinking it was just a throwaway comment, like I'd edited out. I can tell you something. All these are all nuggets. These are all gems. These are all. I actually spoke to Brian the other day when I said I was going to be interviewing you, and he does know who you are. So
right.
It'll be interesting. I will show him this video and let him try and because him, like yourself, he's been around. He's done a lot, so he does know you. But I'm going to see if he can recall meeting you at Sloane Square.
Yeah, there's no way.
Okay, so let's go on to the next question here. As I say, you've answered them so just with your opening statement. It was like, yep. Right. Here's a question for one of my subscribers. Was obviously the cut that we got for the music video, was there a different cut for every country, or was there just one definitive cut?
With the Depeche Mode videos, I was never told anything other than we make one version.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so it was kept a lot easier. Right. Let's see the next one. Oh, here's a question about the It's Called a Heart.
Right.
Like I said, 35 years ago, it goes, who's the guy dancing on the small TV on one of the screens? Is it Elvis Presley?
Oh, right, brilliant. Okay, so that to put that in context, it was a tradition, I think, a convention with the industrial bands that I knew of or worked with, or just simply saw. They liked having projections rather than rock and roll lighting, especially Cabaret Voltaire. And to get interesting images, people would often just film off of TV monitors. So then you could get images of, soldiers marching or whatever you wanted. And so I wanted to put this video with a kind of hint of that kind of tradition. So to have so-called found footage, and I thought it was just kind of nice to have. What it was a documentary about Japanese kids who were copying American rock and roll imagery in particular. And there's about 7 of those guys all dressed up like kind of leather Elvis. And I thought that was just a really nice image. I don't know why. It just sort of worked to be playing that through the TV screens.
You did that, and of course we'll do a separate video later on when we talk about Stripped, because that'll be a very that'll be a very big video to talk about. But I think you also used in Stripped. You also used projections like TV screens. It was the same kind of thing. So very very effective. Right. Here's a question: who chose the wallpaper in the house of Shake the Disease?
All right. Well, that would have been the production designer. And again, I apologize to everyone. I remember her as being, obviously a woman and very nice, and she must have been talented. And the convention putting together a set in particular, but also any kind of part of a film music video, is that the production designer will come forward with certain suggestions. Peter, do you like this wallpaper? Do you like that? I'd go that. And she'd say, yeah, but this one's kind of nicer because of blah, blah, blah. And it'll look better when we put the scummy stains on it to make it look old. So why don't we go with that one? Okay, great. So it's kind of, teamwork, really.
Yes, and I think that was the intentional idea was, as you've explained, it was that room was metaphorically in his mind, and it was very claustrophobic, and it's the whole video is this idea of like losing your mind and falling over. It's that nightmare scene where they and you explained it quite well, was how they filmed the scenes in the hotel room where they're kind of like moving around like that. And I was always fascinated by how they did that, but as you say, it's a great big crane in that tiny room.
Oh, no. There's two ideas there. One, the great big crane makes the camera move around, like so. I actually used the shot twice, which I always see as a little bit of a weakness now, but back then it was kind of nice to have the repetition. But where the camera kind of swoops around like this, it goes down into the drain of the sink and so on, that's on a crane.
Yes.
When the band members are moving around and the world is moving around them, that's where the camera is locked to their body. Now, these days, you can do that really well. You can get like a little GoPro camera that weighs, what, 2 ounces?
Yes.
You can stick it on something and move around, or you could be on a parachute. You could do anything with a GoPro. Back then, the cameras were really heavy, especially the ones that you needed to have basically a method of keeping in sync with the music. So it was this honking big camera with a film magazine on it. And then the rig Tony actually made it for me for a film that I made in the late 70s called Johnny Yesto, which introduced me to the Cabs, because I asked Cabaret Voltaire to do the soundtrack. And I wanted this camera to move with the actor. And as far as I understand, no one had done it before. I know it's dangerous to say that. I'm sure somebody in 1927 in Weimar Republic, Germany, actually did it too. But I could never find any reference point for it anywhere. And so I said to Tony, you're going to have to make a rig for me. And he made it it was built like a tank. It was like these 4 huge, heavy pieces of steel coming out, and a bit of a pad here, so you wouldn't get your bones crushed, and then a leather strap. It was really uncomfortable and really heavy in itself. Then you put a camera on it, it becomes quite a difficult thing. But anyway, the band were totally into it. So that's that effect where they stay static in the frame and the world moves around.
It's quite funny because you kind of just watch it and it's so effortless. But had we had a camera like a fly on the wall to see this massive contraptions and all the practicalities to make it happen,
it would have been great, wouldn't it? In those days, yeah, isn't it funny that it became such a norm to have like a making of crew around, especially with a highly popular band. But in those days, it was all very ephemeral and kind of like, let's not embarrass ourselves and get through this kind of feeling to it. Well, I thought in those days, and ended up being much better than that, obviously.
Peter, what was the budget for this video?
I've got no clue. I'm going to guess it was in the low 5 figures, but I don't remember. And also, here's the thing that it irritated me like crazy coming from my background of running a little company with friends and so on, is the production companies would often lie to the director about the budget anyway. Yeah. Because the directors didn't know what they were doing. They would go over budget. The producers were untrained. The production companies would lose a lot of money. I think they always lied to everyone because they knew that they needed a pad. Otherwise, they would be broke within a few weeks. Oh. So even if I told you the figure that I saw on a budget form, I knew that it was never what it was in reality.
They need to leave themselves a buffer, a bit of headroom and a ceiling, so they could also not. Yeah, because if you knew what the rate was, they'd have to pay you more. Sure, it's all about profit.
Part of it. No, I'm sure of it. It was all a bit unscrupulous in those days.
Yeah. Peter, how long did the Shake the Disease music video take? Was it a week, a couple of days?
My memory is not 100% clear, but I'm going to guess it was 1.5 days. I'm going to guess that it was a day with the set and then half a day with Tony and the band using his machines down in the dockside. And the other, I could go into another rant if you like about...
Please go for it. We love it.
Okay, so this was still a time when it was conventional. This is how I remember most videos, and this is the way it was presented to me, was... One, you shot on film, because video cameras were crap in those days, right? You shot on film, mostly neg, 35mm neg. You shot for like 16, 18, 20 hours for a shoot to get it done. The film would go off to the lab. In the morning, it would be sent over to an editor who would work on what we used to call in the old days online machines. In other words, the guy would go straight into finishing the video. So it would be on like 2-inch tape or 1-inch tape. It was all analog in those days. But basically, he's in there charging, £700 an hour or whatever it was. And then after about 10 hours, you had a finished video, and then that would go off to presumably the record company and to Top of the Pops or whatever. It was just a terrible kind of way of making videos, I thought, just so uncreative. But, a lot of good work came out of it. People had talent, but I thought it was a terrible system. So I would have these arguments with the production company and record companies at times, not, I must add, with Daniel and Depeche Mode. They understood where I was coming from. But a lot of companies were very reticent. I'd say, look, in Sheffield, we used to have this system to save money. You put all your video onto a little machine. You do all your edits. You would edit for like maybe a day or two. And then you could cut the images to the music. You could play around with it. Then you go to an online suite and you pay £700 an hour, but for an hour, not for 10 hours. And they were looking at me like, what the fuck? You mean you need an extra 2 days to make this music video? Get the fuck out of here. I mean, this is literally what I was told. Right. And I used to say also, why do you guys always shoot in one day? I said, look, if you look at the amount of overtime you have to pay for a crew, if you go over 12 hours, you're paying a lot of extra money in overtime. I said, you could use that on a second day, bring everybody back to the same place to make everything more finessed. Or now you've got a chance to go to a totally different location. The drive time out to a different location might be 2 or 3 hours. You couldn't do that in a one-day shoot. Split it up into two. It's cheaper. It's better for the crew. You don't get people, working 25 hours at a time, falling out of the rafters when they're trying to set up lights. And you'll have a much more interesting video. And it was such a battle over and over again until eventually some bands just had that out of control, i.e. Depeche Mode. They would have it controlled. And of course, the record company was the best friend, so there was no problem. Anyway, and the other thing I'd like to add about Shaker's Disease also is one of the reasons I think it looks so nice now, it was a joy to go back and look at it again, was we shot on reversal film. So again, the convention was you shoot on 35mm, which is very, it's like a safety net for most DPs, because a negative, you can overexpose or make mistakes or underexpose, and you still get information on the film, and you can still use it in your music video if you make a mistake. Reversal film, which is like slide film, the old-fashioned slide film, but in form of for a movie camera, was very unforgiving. You got, if you underexpose something, it would be like black, and the colors were really intense. And back then, I wanted my film to look that way. It was a reaction against that kind of milky, bland look that someone, normally you'd shoot in a music video for Top of the Pops. So then I figured, well, why don't you edit on film as well? Which was really kind of, again, like going back, turning the clock back a number of years. I found this editor, a guy called Rick Elgood, who was doing commercials, and they were still editing on film in those days because it was a lot quicker than video. Yeah. And he started to cut music videos for me, and we cut Shake the Disease on film as well. And that it was just beautiful to see the strong colors and the deep blacks that you wouldn't get with the neg in those days. Yeah. Again, to jump forward, 20 years or whatever, 25 years. People called colorists, the people who actually technically transfer the film image to the videotape, or now it would be digital, obviously. They're called colorists, and it became an art form. I've met, I've worked with people out here in LA who are massively important to anybody's work. So they're working on huge movies, zero budget music videos, conventional TV commercials, but they're all they all see themselves as creative. They're really finessing the imagery.
Yeah.
When I was in London, starting up doing music videos, there was no such thing as a colorist. It was just a technician. The film would be on what they call a rank, right, which is like a projector in reverse. It would go through these cogs, and a lens would then send the visuals to a tape, and a guy would look at the oscilloscope and look at the levels and go, oh, wait a minute, that's the blacks are too black or the whites are too white. And they would just create that kind of really bland kind of look for everything. And I used to think, this is just insane. Like, I remember once having a discussion with a guy, and I said, look, everything's looking all milky again, even when we shot on the reversal film. He said, so what's going on? And he said, oh, you want it high contrast. All right, great. And he turned a knob and went boink, like that. And on the TV monitor, it looked great. And when I started to edit the stuff, it looked all milky again. And I found out that the guy just whacked up the monitor to fool me. And so it's just another one of those, like, oh God, like, you know, I used to feel so weird sometimes that bands would also, it seemed, I don't know a lot about the economics of all this, but I understand that quite a lot of bands had contracts where they were ending up paying for the music videos. That some of the music video production would actually break their bank accounts.
Oh yeah.
And I used to, that's appalling. Like, what? And then to see, I mean, I've got to say, there were some wonderful people to work with in London. I met some great crews and great people in editing and so on. But there were a lot of cynical people who just wanted to make their money, and they didn't care about the quality, and they didn't care about the fact that, oh, hang on a minute, you got a kind of working class band from, you know, I don't know, Tower Hill or something. And paying for all of this, I think I'll try and work a little bit harder. There was no feeling of that. I used to get kind of weirded out by that, to be honest.
Peter, was looking back at Shake the Disease now, in hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently? Or are you very proud of it?
I'm proud of the look. I'm proud that it was part of helping the band transition out of that poppy image. When I look back at it, I wish it had a few more shots, so I wasn't repeating shots.
Okay.
And I wish to hell I'd known more about production design and set building to know what I was up against, that those walls were not going to work in camera moving, you know, to create that sense of paranoia.
What was the most challenging part about that video? Was there anything that you tried to do that you couldn't get right technically and had to sort of not do? You know, what was the biggest problem with the video?
Shake the Disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was the main one. That was where I was just crestfallen, really. The night before the shoot, you find out that one of your really cool idea is just hit the floor. Yeah.
I see. And what was the reaction? Now, let's say you film it, you edit it, it gets released. Obviously, well, before it gets released, it gets shown to Daniel. Do you deliver it in person, or how does that work?
Very rarely have I delivered anything in person. It happened once with REM. No, it was actually better for everyone, I think, to keep it very objective and just send it over, and then their reaction could be honest to themselves.
What was their reaction? Did you ever get to hear from them? Did they?
They probably were really nice. I don't actually remember, to be honest with you.
Well, they got you back for another 2 videos.
Well, that was the main thing. You see, in those days also, it was just an actual joy and boon to a director to be asked back once again. And to be asked back to make 3 videos in those days was like a dream come true, because you knew a lot of awkwardness and a feeling, you know, lack of faith and so on would all fall to the side, and you could be a lot more kind of honest with it, you know, between you and the band and the record company. And actually, also your production team would actually also get excited because they kind of knew it would all kind of work out okay. There wouldn't be those arguments about, you know, God, this the kind of these ideas are too crazy and they're never going to pay for it and so on. You kind of would know ahead of time, so everyone gets geared up to create one good piece of film, you know, together. And that was great. And to end with Strip, I know you want to come back and talk about it. That's absolutely fine. But that, I think there's a wonderful, you know, I haven't looked at a lot of music videos for years. So, you know, I've got the Depeche Mode kind of collection of music videos and so on, but I've not put it in the machine since it came out. So anyway, the thing is that it's a really interesting step, I think, between, you know, the kind of like naivete of Fake Disease, and it's called The Heart, which gets more complicated, and there's more instrumentation in the music, and there's more ideas in the film. Yeah. And then it kind of culminates with Stripped, which, you know, has all sorts of good things going on. I think I still love that one. Out of those three, that's the one I watched the most. And I still listen to that song, and I listen to the remixes of that song. I think it's a brilliant song, but I know I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Well, no, that was actually one of the questions out of the three videos, which was your favorite, and you've answered that. Okay. Here's one of my subscribers said, Peter, they said I should tell you this. He said that apparently there was a movie in 1998 called P.I. I've never heard of it, but apparently this movie claims to have invented the walking with camera technique. So he thought I should just let you know that they're claiming, whereas
fucker.
Yeah,
I'm gonna track that guy down.
I think check it out. The movie's called P.I. and it's
P.I.
It almost sounds like a Steven Seagal type movie.
It does a bit, doesn't it? I know. I'm gonna look at
98.
It's always dangerous to say you invented something in film.
Well,
anyway,
this is the thing, because obviously with music production and stuff, you know, because obviously I coach musicians, and very often you'll get a younger musician, they'll send you something and they'll go, and they, you know, most people are quite humble, but there are those who think they've kind of reinvented the wheel. You want to say, hang on, mate, you know, what is this new? And I'm like, mate, I heard that in The Art of Noise back in 1980. So this problem with people who think they've reinvented things because they haven't looked far enough back into the past.
Exactly.
Okay, let me just quickly see. What was the meaning? Yeah, and what was the and you did answer this question. Someone asked, what was the meaning of the falling in the video? Obviously, you have all explained that, but actually, here's a question from another Alan Wilder fanboy. He pointed out that in this video, you sort of see the members kind of falling, and then just as they're about to hit the ground, it cuts away.
Yeah.
But then at the end, you actually see Alan Wilder going upside down. And the question was Alan the only one who was brave enough to do that? Is that?
Oh, I don't know if he was brave. Brave isn't the right word, but he was definitely up for it. So, I think he was more game than the other guys, put it that way.
Yes, here's another question, Peter. You know, when they're falling like that, there seems to be like a box with like red, looks like goo or gunge or something. Was that intentional, or was that just happened to be where they were standing?
Shit, just to happen to be where they're standing. I think what it was you needed hard ground for the.
Yeah. Oh. Hello to you. Thank you very much, young lady.
Yeah. So, the brains of the family right there. Oh, and by the way, Lorraine, hang on. What was the name of the club?
06.
06. She used to go and watch Depeche Mode at 06.
Thank you, Lorraine. That's great.
I'm an Essex girl.
She's an Essex girl, so she knows all about that guy.
Oh, she's an Essex girl, and so you met her in America there.
Yeah, she was out here in America pursuing her career.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So the boy from Sheffield meets the girl from Essex in LA. That's brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Okay. Right, Peter. So I think where we got cut off was I was talking about one of my subscribers was asked, was Alan the only one brave enough to go on the?
Yeah, I know. Then you mentioned the red dirt, and I was going to say I'm going to have to look at that video again, because the only real decision making was that the pole that the person was strapped on at their feet was a motor, and that had to be kind of on steady ground, like concrete, really.
Yeah.
And then with grass or dirt, that hid the pole that was going from the motor along the ground to where the camera was strapped to it. So you needed those two elements together. And that's the only reason behind that particular composition.
Okay, you've answered the question, because obviously this was filmed on concrete. You can see the band member kind of falling over, and then there is something on the ground which it looks out of place, although it doesn't. It looks like broken wood and like derelict furniture or something. So but that explains.
It might have been a safety pad. Yeah, no. It might have been a safety pad or something in case the motor ran out of its damping energy, and they would flop down and break their elbow or something. Well, I should also, before I forget, anybody who's really interested in these kind of camera rigs should go to Tony Hill's website. It's tonyhill.com, I believe, or maybe it's .uk. Anyway, his name's Tony Hill. You can Google him.
Tonyhill.com.
Tony Hill, yeah.
I tell you what, should I contact him and ask him if he wants to chat to us about this? Do you think he'd be up for it?
Yeah, he would. I think he would, and he's done lots of other interesting things himself. He's kind of like unknown genius, this guy.
I do know the name Tony Hill. And I'm just having a bit of brain fog here as to, it's just, you know what it is? It's like you hear these names in the industry, you just hear the names, but you can't picture the. I know I will Google him and I'll be like, oh, of course, yes.
Right. Okay.
Is he based in the UK here as well?
As far as I understand it from his little video clips, he's still living on in his farm in Derbyshire. Okay. And he's still doing lectures and so on. You know, art. A lot of his work is kind of in gallery installation work, based films that are always based on some kind of rig or some kind of invention that he's made. So that's, I believe, how he still keeps his profile. But he also works in the sports world. He invented a rig that was very popular out here in California for a while, where you're kind of strapped into this open spherical metallic frame, and you can move around and go upside down and so on. And so he was inventing, anything to do with the man and machine. Tony's done it, I think.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I'm going to be reaching out to Tony Hill, and I'll be blaming you for it.
Okay, that's fine.
So he's obviously like an engineer.
Yeah.
So it's like, so he was the one who did all the machinery behind the Shake the Disease and all the cranes and all the that kind of thing. Oh, I'll definitely check him out. Right, Peter. I'm going to end the interview here because that's going to make this interview about 70 minutes long.
That's a long time.
I think this is a good. This is a good time now with the. I don't want to be facetious now, but with the lockdown now, everyone's watching videos. So this will definitely be a good time for people to catch up on their binge watching. But I think what I've obviously determined, and I knew even before I spoke to you, I knew. It's like with any subject, you can go into it, but then you can really go into it. And even though after talking to you for 70 minutes, we have only scratched the surface, because there is so much more we can go into. I want to thank you for your time today. I'm very grateful to you. And I can tell you now that this video is going to be so popular with my subscribers.
Interesting.
Okay. It's going to be It's going to be released on Sunday. 6 p.m. For me and 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. for you.
Right.
It's go live. I'll send you links on your Facebook page.
Okay.
But as I say, and I'm sure I'm going to have to come back and interview you on some other things as well, because I think we've opened the Pandora's box now.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it as well, and it's been also very kind of relaxing. and you've done a great job, so thank you. And I'm just floored by the fact that you have 10,000 people out there as subscribers, and you have these people who are really interested in the aspect of filming a music video as opposed to just the music and so on, which is fair enough. But it's been really nice to talk with you.
No, for sure. And I think I've just made it my little mission to ask the questions that haven't been asked, because like when I interviewed Dave Bascombe recently, or even with like Brian Griffin, and I'm not trying to boast here or brag or anything, it was just, I was always surprised that nobody interviewed Brian Griffin about the Depeche Mode album covers. I was surprised that no one interviewed Dave Bascombe about the music for the Masses album. And I'm surprised no one's really, asked you these questions, because these are like such massive, and they're not only great songs, they are iconic videos, and they're pieces of art that I think people will look at one day and go, wow, this is iconic stuff. So that's just my mission, is to try and bring some light to these questions that never get answered.
There you go.
So what do you got some plans for the day? You've got another meeting to go to, or?
Oh no, nothing really. No, Lorraine and I worked for years together, and now we're kind of retired. And with the lockdown, film production has stopped, and we are always looking to do something of interest. A project like, I don't know, let's do a film for homeless children in LA or something like that. And so we kind of look around for projects to do with a camera and go out and shoot stuff. But right now we're kind of enjoying, actually, I think mostly the days that we can catch up on a lot of stuff. And we're very lucky. We're close to the beach, so we can take the dog down to the beach once a day. So, it's no complaints really, just a little bit weird now. It's getting a little frustrating.
We will do a Skype interview with you on the beach one day with the sun down, and that'll make us Brits, us Brits get all jealous. Is anything you're working on at the moment that you want to let the subscribers know about, or anything up and coming in the pipeline?
No, nothing worth talking about. And we have a rule: we never talk about something before it's actually happening, because
gotcha.
It's pointless. But no, I'm rebuilding the website is kind of it, and Lorraine is better at that stuff than I am. So she's gonna teach me how to get the website kind of better and with a lot more of the older stuff. I've actually found myself going back more to the times in Sheffield and when I was working on films and videos that had no money. It wasn't part of the industry. It was just stuff I would do for the cabs and so on. And revisiting that stuff has been good and time consuming as well. That's kind of what it is, I think. You get retired, you're an old geezer, and you think, well, it would be nice for people to be able to tap into the old work pretty quickly. And let's get it out on a website. So we've been doing it for years.
But you are pretty much obviously still available for music videos and all that kind of thing.
Kind of.
Yeah.
The last music video was, let me see. Well, the last video was Aftermath for REM. That was about 11, 12 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But the only band that I wanted to work with and to, because I could trust the word of them, their manager, and the record company. And before that, I'd stopped, and Lorraine and we both got fried on it all. I remember being asked to write a treatment for someone, Paul Oakenfold or someone like that. Great song. I was really, we loved it, and we were into put some of our favorite ideas into it, and didn't hear anything from the record company. And I found out later they had bid 29 directors on this one video that was, minute budget. I'm sure Paul had no idea what was going on. It was terrible. I just thought, again, it seems like the industry manages to kind of shoot itself in the foot over and over and over again.
It does.
And I think it was a shame. And I just thought, I can't deal with it. I'm not going to spend 2 or 3 days putting a treatment together, and then, as luck would have it, 28 other directors aren't chosen. It's pathetic. So we kind of both decided to stop. But luckily, REM were looking for a music director after that, and that worked out really well. So that kind of gave, it was great. Yeah. Then from music videos, Lorraine and I were able to work together on commercials and make commercials. It's quite personal and actually very enjoyable for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then I did a feature film. So it was kind of it was like a sine wave, the career.
Yeah. Well, obviously you did a lot of work with REM. REM are one of my favorite bands, and I love what you did with the Leaving New York. It was lovely, absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Stunning. Well, listen, Peter, as I say, I've proved once again that we can, as I said we're going to end it 10 minutes ago, but it's just so easy to get into the flow with conversation with someone like you. It's been an absolute honor, and nice to meet you. And I'm sure maybe we can encourage Lorraine to have a few words next time as well.
Yeah. She's shaking her head right now, but no, we'll definitely make that work. Yeah.
Really?
But
once again,
anything you want, Vaughn. It's been very enjoyable. It's actually, and apart from enjoyable, really interesting to hear what people are thinking about, what they want to ask questions on. And it's work that's 35 years old that it's been left, in a box somewhere in the ether world. And now, things like this are emerging now, and to see it kind of be worthwhile and capture people's imagination is just fantastic. So I thank you for that. It was very unexpected. And thank you. And we'll speak again.
Absolutely. So I'm going to hang up now, and this broadcast will be broadcast on Sunday.
All right.
All the best to you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right. That's good.
Thanks, mate.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.